One Piece is a story about people's dreams. Nami wants to make a map of the entire world. Usopp wants to become a brave warrior of the sea. Sanji wants to find the All Blue. Zoro wants to become the greatest swordsman in the world. And Luffy wants to become king of the pirates. The reason Luffy seeks the One Piece, though, the reason he intends to tread the most dangerous waters possible, is to become the most free person on the seas. Luffy views Gold Roger and his position as the Pirate King as the most free a person can be, and intends to chase that dream with his life on the line every step of the way. Alongside Luffy, each member of his crew becomes free of something that binds them, and each of them gains an absolute devotion to their captain and crew. Zoro's freedom by Luffy's hand was far more literal than the rest of the crew, but alongside it and his joining of the crew, he found a freedom to chase his dream that he never could have achieved alone. Zoro, on first meeting Luffy, is completely against joining, but is forced to follow him and Nami on their escape from the island. While captured by Buggy, Zoro reveals that he's been inspired by Luffy's ambition and has become loyal to his new captain. Under Luffy's command, Zoro finds a company that he has never had before on his journey to become the strongest, and can travel even farther along that path than he ever could have alone. During his time in the well and his efforts to climb out of it, Zoro begins reflecting on his past and emerges with a newfound devotion to his dream and his new captain, more free than ever to chase that dream and willing to pay any cost to do so. Unfortunately, he is about to be made fully aware of how great that cost can be. When Mihawk arrives at Baratie, Zoro has the chance to stare his dreams and their burning yellow eyes and pointy mustache, and knows in that moment that he must duel Mihawk. It is by all means a horrible idea, but it is his dream, and Luffy would do nothing to stop him from chasing that dream. This duel serves two purposes in the larger narrative: teaching Zoro what he actually needs if he is to one day reach the pinnacle of sword fighting, and teaching Luffy how big the world really is, and the kind of people he will face in the Grand Line on his path to becoming the Pirate King. In Zoro's loss, there is freedom for both of them. The realization of how big the world is, and the continued devotion to both of their dreams in the face of it, is a very real kind of freedom, and now Zoro is truly free. Usopp spent his life running through the streets lying about pirates coming to save his mother, hoping that his father would return for her. Luffy freed Usopp of his lies, and by sailing with the crew, each of his lies would one day become true. He's introduced as a liar and a storyteller, and is incredibly devoted to Kaya. That devotion binds him to Syrup Village, though, and even though he feels the sea calling to him just as his father before him, he cannot leave Kaya, especially while she's sick. Klahadore is, of course, poisoning her and therefore binding Usopp to Syrup Village. When Luffy defeats Klahadore, he frees Usopp from that binding, and his words to Usopp about needing a sharpshooter on his crew, just like Usopp's father, gives him the final push he needs to set out to sea like he's always wanted. Now Usopp can start taking steps forward to achieve his dream. He isn't yet fully free, however, as far as he has come. Until he develops a belief in himself and his own freedom, he won't be able to live free. On Konomi Island during the fight, Usopp finds himself against one of Arlong's commanders on his own, and there in that fight is where Usopp finds his freedom. Defeating that fishman was the beginning of Usopp realizing his dream, and now he is truly free. Sanji was bound by his devotion to Zeph, and would never have been able to leave Baratie if not for Luffy. He would have spent his life cooking there, most likely taking over the restaurant and living out his days, doing what he loves, but remaining unfulfilled nonetheless. He tells Luffy himself that he has trouble looking ahead. Sanji's dream of finding the All Blue is one that almost every person he's known has told him couldn't be achieved except for Zeph. That encouragement from Zeph, that love for the man who saved his life and told him it was possible to fulfill his dream, is ironically what also held him back. Sanji could never be truly free to chase his dream because he would always feel indebted to Zeph. He would always feel like he had to spend his life paying Zeph back for what he's done to Sanji. Sanji's freedom is a gift, not necessarily from Luffy, but from Zeph. Luffy gave him a ship to be on, but it is only Zeph's insistence for Sanji to leave that gave him that freedom. In the end, only Zeph ever could have convinced Sanji to go join the Straw Hat crew, and now, with a final push from him, Sanji is truly free. Nami's first meeting with Luffy is an entirely negative one. He gets in the way of her stealing from the Marines, she hates pirates, and he doesn't do much more than get on her nerves for much of their time together. We continue to get offhand lines from Nami in episode 2 about her hatred for pirates when our motley crew is captured by Buggy. Buggy's crew's destruction of Orangetown does nothing to help her hatred. Nami is significantly less open about her loyalty to Luffy at first, but during those events of episode 2, she mostly quits denying that she's a member of the crew, and her loyalty to Luffy begins to give her hope and set her free from Arlong's control. Luffy is not entirely responsible for Nami's freedom, however. Kaya's generosity plays a very large part in Nami gaining loyalty to Luffy and the Straw Hat crew. During their conversation, it becomes clear that Nami is still hiding a lot, though. She denies losing anyone in her life, and though it's not known to the viewer at this point in the story, we later learn that Nami has suffered immense tragedy in her childhood. She becomes agitated when she discovers that Luffy's grandfather is a vice admiral of the Marines and is chasing them, for her specific personal reason, but still has trouble leaving the crew to return to the Konomi Islands despite this. Luffy does nearly remind her of her dreams at one point, but she's not ready for it yet. She's still bound by Arlong, and until those bonds are broken, she can never be fully free. For a moment, she has nearly earned her freedom for the low price of 100 million berry, but at her highest, at her moment of hope and celebration, it is all torn away by a Marine officer, and suddenly she is brought crashing back down to her lowest point. Nothing to her name, no hope of saving her home, and she finally asks for help, finally putting full trust in Luffy and the rest of the crew. The Straw Hat crew, as they always tend to do, finally bring Nami true freedom. Koby is not a member of the crew, and as part of the Marines, works in direct opposition to Luffy, but was freed by Luffy nonetheless, in both a very literal and metaphorical way. It takes time for Koby to understand the freedom that Luffy has granted him, but over the course of the show, we see Koby's understanding of Luffy and what exactly Luffy has given him grow. Koby's path diverges from Luffy's at Shellstown, and we see the rest of his journey following and training with Garp. And we can certainly see where Luffy gets a lot of his quirks. Luffy's grandfather trains Koby to become a much better Marine, but Garp is also in some ways still holding Koby back. Being a Marine isn't quite what he envisioned, and chasing down Luffy, Koby is realizing that Luffy is doing good for people, but the Marines want him in chains anyways, just because he calls himself a pirate. Overhearing Garp bring in a warlord to hunt down Luffy especially unsettles Koby, and furthers his growing distrust of the Marines. Garp's pep talk to Koby helps him keep some of that trust in the Marines and the government, though he's already lost a lot. Koby's conversation with Helmeppo at the bar in Baratie reveals a lot about those exact feelings that Koby holds for the current state of the Marines and the chase Garp is leading against his grandson. He feels as though chasing Luffy is a mistake, that Luffy has done no wrong, and if the Marines continue to make mistakes like this, nothing is ever going to change. Of course, little does Kobe know, Garp was just testing his grandson, and now Kobe can work with the Marines with a sound heart. Now he is truly free. One Piece is about a lot of things. Oppression, racism, classism. It really can't be understated just how much the story covers important real world political issues. More than anything else, though, One Piece is about freedom. The freedom to love and live, the freedom to be who you are, freedom of identity, and more than anything else, the freedom to follow your dreams.